This video is one of a series of videos on the topic of action learning that are available within the course. It's advisable to view these other videos as well as this one and stop them, make notes, rewind, play forward and so on, and make sure you're clear with the concept. Make sure you understand what action learning is. In this one, we're going to look at the benefits of action learning and look at related topics. It's quite a short video, like the others indeed. This one is just 17 slides, as you can see from the bottom right hand corner. Now, we'll start by talking about the things to avoid in action learning set. So if we're in an action learning set, i.e. we're in a group that's trying to solve a particular problem, a particular issue, and we're trying to resolve it in some way, there are certain things to avoid, certain actions to avoid, and certain ways of behaving that it's worth avoiding. First of all, imposing your values and opinions on others is to be avoided. That's not something that is conducive to a good outcome. Sometimes we believe we know the answer, we know the best route, when in fact the best route is somewhere else. It's a different set of procedures. But if we impose our will without listening to others and listening to what they have to say and listening to different ideas, then we could be pulling the whole group in the wrong direction. And instead of resolving the problem, we could just leave the problem to fester and perhaps even get worse. So imposing our values and opinions on others is to be avoided. Secondly, try to avoid giving advice. Make a contribution and be sure to specify the limitations of the contribution you're making. Specify them in terms of their fragility. They may not be precise, they may not be absolutely the solution that is needed. It may be simply a contribution towards the overall thinking which will resolve the problem. So sometimes we don't have the answer, but we have ideas about what to do which may lead to the answer. But giving advice to others about their opinions or about what to do with their opinions in terms of refinement of the ideas or when to sequence their contributions, that advice may be wrong. It may lead to a postponement, a putting off of the final solution. So try to avoid giving advice to others. Instead of that, work cooperatively with the other members of the group. Listen to them, make a contribution, get feedback on your contribution, accept the criticisms, try to refine your ideas so that they become stronger, and do the same for others. And that's different to being much more dictatorial and much more adamant and giving advice in a strong manner. Try not to be judgmental. Try not to judge others and their contributions. And certainly don't resort to insult or to ridicule. Instead, just listen to the contributions that are made by other members of the set, of the group that are working on the particular problem. It's action learning, so they're trying to solve the problem here and now, trying to work through a solution. And being judgmental or being critical, being too critical of the other members of the set may lead simply to internal conflict rather than a solution to the problem. Instead of solving the problem, the group may start to fragment and start to argue amongst themselves because there are strong opinions being expressed, and some of the opinions may be totally remote from what was required of the group. Don't criticize or trivialize the other people's contributions. Criticizing is quite acceptable if it's constructive. But don't just criticize it for the sake of criticism. Criticism is meant to make the points stronger. It's meant to make an argument better. It's designed to make the points better, to refine them. It's not criticism for the sake of criticism, or certainly not. It should not be aimed at insulting the other speaker or intimidating the other speakers. And likewise, don't trivialize their contribution. If their contribution is not significant in terms of the overall solution to the problem, they still should not be trivialized. They have tried to give a contribution. As it turns out, their contribution may be quite small, but it's a contribution. They are part of the team, and they should be encouraged rather than castigated or insulted for their contribution. Now, the benefits of action learning. Well, it leads to increased confidence, because when people work on a problem that is immediate and it's a pressing problem, let's say within the business, within the company, and it must be resolved, and there is no obvious solution to the problem, when the solution is found, all the members of the group will benefit. They will experience a surge in their own confidence. They have resolved an issue, so they are more confident as a consequence. They'll also be more self-aware. They will know what their limitations are. They will know who made the key breakthrough, the key point that resolved the problem. They will know what the various contributions were, and they'll know what their own contribution was. And when they reflect on the whole process, they will have an increased self-awareness of their own strengths and weaknesses. It should have an ability to approach situations from a broader and more political perspective than in the past. Working with others in a group, trying to solve a pressing problem within a business, let's say. This is action learning, don't forget. The solution here is not available in textbooks. So they're trying to resolve this problem, and when the problem is resolved and they reflect upon it, they'll realize that they're able to look at problems from a very wide perspective. The other members of the group may come from different disciplines, different parts of the organization. They may have different perspectives. And this means that they will all become aware of each other's contribution, and it'll widen their own contribution. It'll widen the issues for them. They will not just speak and for example, throw resources at the problem, commit more financial resources to the problem, because perhaps another member of the group is a finance person who's critically aware of the need to conserve cash for cash flow purposes or whatever it is. So they will take in other people's opinions and their contributions, which will broaden their own perspective. And likewise, to get their suggestions accepted, they may have to be more political, more understanding of their colleagues, and perhaps give away something in order to get something. A bit like the political process, where governments might have to agree to some legislation and abandon others because they don't have sufficient authority to do so. So in politics there's always give and take, and in this situation there may be give and take as well. And that could be a benefit of action learning, because the members of the group now know the need, I should say, to agree and to compromise. More proactive than reactive in problem solving and decision making. Well, with action learning, the members of the group are trying to solve the problem. They're not waiting for the problem to get bigger before they spring into action. They're trying to be proactive. They're trying to look at the problem, resolve it, and take steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again. They're being more proactive within the organization. So action learning leads members of learning sets and of groups to come together quite quickly, look at problems, try to resolve the problems, try to minimize the impact of a problem, and try to stop it from happening again in the future. They're also more reflective than emotional in tense situations. Members of the group, if they're adopting the action learning philosophy more complete and understand its importance, so they have got a complete picture of what is required, they tend to be reflective. They make suggestions, and they then think about their suggestions and try to trace through the implications of their recommendations. So they're not emotional. They're not trying to bully through their recommendations. Or if their recommendations are not accepted, they don't feel that it's a personal slight on them. Far from it. They're reflecting all the time. They're reflecting about their own contributions and the other contributions. And it could be that different members of the group will recognize a different member again, his or her contribution, and will subscribe to that contribution, abandoning their own thinking, but coming across because they believe that that one is a better, a stronger candidate as a solution. They tend to be better at listening. It's important that members of a group or a learning set listen to what is being said, try to work out why it's been said, what is its content, what are its implications, how does it work, what will it lead to. So they're looking at the situation from a much more much deeper form of analysis. They're looking at it with a deeper understanding. And the reason why they've got a deeper understanding is because they've listened carefully. They've understood the significance of the different points made within the group. And they may wish to revise their own contribution in view of what's been said elsewhere. They may not be dogmatic about their own contribution. So they're good at listening. They move to new jobs more quickly and effectively. When a team has confidence, not just in each other, but in their contributions and in their effectiveness, and the personality clashes have been got over, and they're working well as a team, then the success from one project, from overcoming one obstacle within the company, using action learning, being involved at the time, reflecting, thinking, making contributions, and so on. When they've done that and they've been successful, they will have more confidence to move on very quickly to new tasks, and perhaps even more difficult tasks within the business, and tackle those, because now they have confidence in each other. They know what they're doing, they know what their contributions, they've got over the petty personality issues. They are now working effectively as a team, so they have the confidence to work on other problems. They achieve goals faster than expected. That's generally the case. If the problem is quite complicated within a business, whatever the problem is, could be technical, production, marketing, whatever it is, if it's quite complicated, then one person on his or her own may find that inordinately complex. They may find it extremely complex and difficult to handle. they're not even too sure where to start, and they may also have a reticence about getting involved because they're afraid of making it even worse. So there is an issue about dealing with these quite complex problems. The issue is that individuals will be reticent, as I said, to commit themselves. However, once a group is formed and they have confidence in each other and they start to work together effectively as a team, they'll achieve goals faster, because instead of saying and trying it out, they can now say their recommendation to the group, say it out loud to the group. The group will listen to this, and then the group will criticize and think about it and reflect on it and make contributions and make suggestions and propose amendments and changes, and this will happen very quickly. It could happen whilst sitting in a circle talking to each other, so that now the original contribution will be much stronger, so that the goals could be achieved much faster. It's also developing and stimulating others in the organization. When the organization sees a group being effective in problem solving and in dealing with problems, and when the organization, when the reputation of the team spreads throughout the organization, this could stimulate others into becoming part of, or wanting to become part of the team, or also starting their own action learning sets, perhaps within different departments. So instead of one action learning team trying to cover the whole organization, because it doesn't have an expertise in all of the various departments, it might be better that each department has an action learning team specific for that department. So production would have one, stores could have one, distribution could have one, depending on the structure of the organization and the type of product being produced. But certainly the success of an action learning team or an action learning set may stimulate others into forming similar sets, so that the whole organization has developed sets looking at problems, resolving problems, and doing it perhaps locally within their own departments. So there are considerable benefits from action learning that flow from this particular methodology, this way of learning. It does not in any way diminish the need to have good college education, good university education, good vocational education. It does not diminish any of that. It does not diminish the power of textbooks. But when dealing with a problem within the organization, that problem may be unique to that organization, and the only way to address that is action learning, by studying that particular problem, trying to find a solution to that particular problem, and doing that within a group and with these various benefits will ensure that the organization is on a more stable footing, perhaps, and its long-term viability is more assured as a consequence. But that's all we're going to deal with on the benefits of action learning, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.